This is the Kestrel Country Podcast, where we discuss the people, places, and events all around Kestrel Country. We're talking about hunting. 2021.
Last year.
Year in review.
All right.
Little hunting year in review.
Yeah. You went turkey hunting, didn't you?
Yeah, that was pretty much all I did last year.
Start with that.
It was no good. Yeah, so last spring, I know I was starting to get pumped about turkey season already coming into this year. But last spring, took Asa out. So he had just turned 12 last season. So he just turned 12.
That was the first season you've taken him, though. Nice.
Well, I took him the year before on the passport.
Okay.
But he didn't get anything. I wasn't able to call anything in for him. But this year, he had his 20 gauge. We got him, we went out there and it was the first morning we hunted. Okay. I'm pretty sure, I'm trying to remember it all. I think it was still during the youth season, like right before opening day for the general season. Yeah. Still in that youth. And it was, so we went to this field where we had them roosted. We knew that they were up in these trees in the timber, but we kind of went up this gully, got up there before light. So it's still super dark. Went up, sat like in this big cluster of bushes. Okay. And so I was sitting behind the bush, with my calls and stuff. And I just put Asa in front of it, face masked up and everything, sitting right in front of the bush. And sure enough, started to get light and the gobblers are just in the trees, just gobbling at each other and going crazy in the trees. Well, so I started calling a little bit.
How far away did you set up from them?
They were, it was probably 100 yards.
Okay, yeah.
So pretty close.
Yeah.
But we were down, we got up in the dark, and then they were kind of just over this little hill in the timber.
You didn't want to get too close.
We didn't want them to see us.
Yeah.
So but then they just start going nuts. And then I can hear them flying down and everything. But the way it was, there was kind of a little hill, and we were kind of in the draw on the one side, and they pitched off their roost and just went off the other direction, down the draw, right? But I can hear them going nuts, and they're gobbling back at me when I'm calling, but all the hens are going the other way. It's just couldn't get them. So I just kind of kept calling, got a little more aggressive. And so then we heard gobble. I started seeing all these birds come up over the hill finally in the farm field towards us. So wide open. And I'm looking out and I'm like, oh man, it's just a bunch of hens. They're going to bust us. This hunt's going south. But then I called a little bit of my box call, just and a few of them, probably 3 of them in this group, just so they were jakes, no beers, but I was like, okay, well, at least they're legal. So you guys hadn't
moved. You stayed in the same spot.
Yeah, we stayed in the exact same spot. Yeah. So they're coming over and I call again. So I whisper to Ace, I'm like, Ace, I'm going to call again because they're getting close. And I'm like, they're going to see us. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm going to call again, shoot one of the ones that gobbles.
Because you're trying to look for little beers.
Yeah. They're little jakes, And I'm kind of crossing my fingers oh man, this is not his 20 gauge. It was a decently long shot. I'm like, he's not going to get anything. So sure enough, I call a little bit real soft and boom. Asa lets off. And I jumped up thinking I'm sure he missed. It sounds terrible as a dad to say that, but
yeah. Did you have a gun with you? No,
because it was a youth season.
Okay, yeah. So you can't even help.
So I jump up and go to run out there, and sure enough, this Jake is out there just flopping, on the ground. He nailed it with that 20 gauge, and so I ran out there and stomped on, finished her off with the old ring in the neck. But dude, he was so pumped. And honestly, that little Jake and that simple hunt was probably the most fun hunt I've ever been on. It's crazy getting the kids involved and anyway, so that's how my year started off last year.
I think mine was the same. We took my little brother Bo. I think it was opening day of youth season. Went up with a buddy, Dave Carr. We went up on a mountain, just some public land. It's fun because there's still snow up there. And that youth season, if you're moving to Idaho, coming to Idaho, that youth season is awesome. Turkeys haven't been hunted yet. They're gobbling already. It's a great time to get the kids out. We took Bo out. Had one gobbling, hiked up a couple of ridges through a clear cut, had one gobbling across the drainage. And he'd gobble every time we called, but he wasn't moving. same thing. And I think the lesson here is stay where you're at, because we're like, well, let's go get him. So we sneak, all the way around. So hopefully he didn't see us, go all the way up through the drainage, get up to the other side, nothing. We're like, maybe he moved another one farther away. So we call off the back side of it, nothing. We're like, wow, that was a bust that morning. So we get back up to where he was and call again just for fun. And literally the point across the draw where we'd started at, we're like, oh man, there's another turkey over there.
He'd made his way over.
Yeah, we didn't realize it was even the same one. But so we get all the way, we hike all the way down, back up, back to where we started. And we get to the corner of the logging road that we'd been sitting on. And there was still a bunch of snow. And there's big old fresh turkey tracks right in our tracks. We're like, what the heck? Like, that thing is right here. So I set up back up behind the road. David was filming. And we set up. Bo was in front, just above the logging road. And he just dove off the logging road down into some timber. And we call, and he gobbled, and he was right there. I think we called a couple more times, and I just hear boom. And sure enough, he'd come right up to the road, and Bo smacked him.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it was a good start to the turkey season. It's always fun. And
what's the age cutoff for that youth?
I think it's 10. I think 10 you can get the passport.
Yeah, once you start. But what's the upper limit?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if it's 18.
Does it go all the way to 18? It might.
Those high schoolers that are still using it, I don't know about that. But no, it's great for the young kids getting out there, and turkey hunt's a great way to start.
Spring turkey is it's so awesome. All the weather's changing, everything's coming out and running around, and it's fun. I'm excited to get back out for sure.
Yeah. No, turkey's good. I think turkey, and then turkey and bear season both start on April 15th every year in Idaho. So we went bear hunting a couple times. Me and Mike had some mixed success. It was a rough year. We set up a bait and had 2 bears hit it all year. Only 2 that I know of on a trail cam. We got a shot at one, didn't work out.
That was me.
I don't know, just a fluke there, something crazy.
Yeah. It was fun though. That was cool. That was like second time I've been bear hunting.
Yeah.
It's cool to even just see them. Super cool.
Yeah.
Especially being from Michigan. It's just oh my gosh, there's bears running around in the woods. This is awesome.
Yeah. I think Idaho has a pretty good bear population, and general seasons in a lot of areas up here. But yeah, we only had that one hit it. And then there's one big bear that hit the bait once. It was literally just once, and it had been weeks. And, I was running out of time going down there checking it. I started bringing my shotgun for turkeys because it was so slow. I'd go down there and check it. Nothing had hit it. Nothing on the trail cam. So usually I try to wait till they're hitting it. You wait till they're hitting it pretty consistently, and then you sit it. Well, we'd baited it for weeks, and they weren't hitting it consistent. So I was like, well, I'm going to sit it, on the off chance one comes back. And sure enough, one morning I packed in the bait, threw it down on the logging road, which was, how far do you think that was? Probably 150 yards.
150, yeah.
Really steep drainage. I was on the logging road on one side and the bait's up on the other side. Threw the bait down, catching my breath, and threw the binos up for fun. And there was just a little, 2 inches of black right on the ridge line on the backside. I thought, man, that looks like the back of a bear or something. So I was looking at it, and all of a sudden it moved. I thought, oh, shoot. I was packing this big bag of dog food in. It's all loud, and I didn't expect anything to be on it. So I thought, oh, man, he already hit it, and he's headed out. So I ran up a little higher on my side of the draw to see if I could get a better angle. And sure enough, 30 seconds later, kind of 30 yards up from the bait, he popped over the top onto my side, and he was jogging, I'd say. He wasn't walking and feeding, but he wasn't sprinting either. He's just he was working his way pretty quickly up the ridge. And so there was one gap between the trees. So I leaned up against a tree and just waited. And as soon as I saw him in it, I let it rip, and he just rolled down the hill right there. And
That's awesome.
Sweet. Yeah. And got up to it. It was a great bear, big bear. So I think it was that same one that had hit it. But slow year, I kind of use the word lucky probably. Just the odds were not there with how often they're hitting the bait, but that was fun for the bear season.
Yeah, and we didn't really know at that point. It was kind of we were still getting rain and all kinds of stuff. Things were all still green, and then everything just totally dried out this summer. I don't know, what did you think about how that affected hunting coming into this last fall season?
Yeah, I think the antler growth wasn't good. I'm not watching specific deer or elk to see, oh man, he's a lot smaller, but just with how dry it was, I know the disease hit pretty bad up here for the deer.
Yeah.
Just because we get the lack of water and water movement, so we get these stagnant areas of water, and I know blue tongue sounded like it hit pretty bad south all the way up north of here, kind of the whole area.
Yeah. Did you run into, I know like out by our house, like just anecdotally, it's like we saw a bunch of deer. We probably saw 3 or 4 just laying dead kind of thing.
Really?
And that's just like from driving and walking around, not like hiking deep through the woods and stuff.
Yeah.
So did you run into anything when you're out?
No, I think I found like 3 dead does this year. I didn't go a lot. I think I only hunted 2 days for deer. And there were 3 in a spot, but I got pictures. I remember one picture a buddy sent me on a neighbor's property just north of town, and it was like 5 little buckheads that he'd picked up on his acreage. I mean, just walking a draw. So I know it hit really hard in some areas. And, hearing how guys did for whitetail this year was the same thing. I feel like half the guys I talked to, spots where they usually get into a ton of deer, it's like the deer had moved out. Not even that they were finding a bunch of dead ones, but they just didn't see any. And I don't know if that was lack of water or, something different. But some areas, were still good. But it was just kind of interesting to see that. But
yeah, I didn't hear about that really affecting the elk too much.
No, yeah, not that I know of. I know they found that CWD in elk now south of us here, so that is obviously not a good thing. But I think the elk herds I didn't hear of any effect on them, and I'm not sure why. I don't know if it doesn't affect them as much, or I know the deer. I think they hit that same water source, and if one gets it, I've heard it spreads really easily.
Yeah.
But yeah, summer was dry and hot. Did you go archery hunting this year?
No.
Mike took the year off.
I did. I know. Yeah, it was the first time I haven't hunted in the fall in I don't know how many years.
Yeah.
Probably since like high school.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just busy and family stuff, and ended up just deciding to take a break this year, which it was kind of nice, but it definitely just got me pumped to get back out.
Yeah.
So how did you do?
It was good, good and bad, I guess. I didn't get one, so that was bad. But same thing, super busy. So I decided to just do it. We went, total, it was probably a 3.5, 4 day trip, but it was a day driving down, day driving back up. So I went down to southern Idaho.
Was that the first time you've elk hunted or archery hunted down there?
Yeah. Yep. First time I've archery hunted, just a general tag, so you can just get it over the counter. I had a buddy who's been down there before, David. He really liked it, hunting down there in the past. So we decided to make a little trip. This year we're going to go longer because it wasn't long enough. His car broke on the way down. We were probably, I don't know, 2.5, 3 hours into the trip, down along the river driving. And all of a sudden we're both like, man, something reeks in here. And the windshield starts fogging up. Oh, no. And David's like, oh, I know what it is. It's a heater core. And I'm like, oh, great. So sure enough, coolant is coming out of the vents, like the defrost vents onto the windshield on the inside. And it's coming, smoke's coming out of the dash vents, and we're just, oh man. So we took a shirt and threw it over the windshield vents. And it was like 20 degrees down there along the river. And it was, we had the windows open because we were getting smoked out. Real bad.
It was that cold down there
it was
in September.
Freezing. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was really cold down along and it was like 5 a.m. Really cold. So we got into, where were we? We got into a little town, I think just south of Missoula. Stopped by a couple auto body shops. One of them said, yeah, sure. It was Labor Day weekend. He's like, yeah, sure. We'll look at it after Labor Day, which was like 3 days the day we were coming back from the trip. And it was like a couple $1,000 or something, which David was like, I don't care about the cost. We just got to be able to go hunting. So David decides, we can just do it ourselves because Jed's fixed some stuff on his car before. I'd never done anything like that. So we stopped at a Napa David bought the new heater core, and made the mistake of asking them if we could change it in the parking lot, and they said no way. And they're like, you guys are going to make a coolant mess everywhere. You can't change it here. So we went up into Missoula to a AutoZone. And I think it was like just over 2 hours. Got the dash. You have to pull the complete dash out, man. Pull the steering wheel off. Yeah, found it. Sure enough, that was the issue. We got the new one in, and I was putting together one side, the driver's side, because I told David I wanted to be able to put the steering wheel back on because I didn't trust him. Because he was pretty loosey-goosey. Once we got it in there, he just wanted to go. Sure enough, we finish up, and I look over, and he still had probably like 20 bolts sitting in the thing, but it was together.
Oh, man.
He's like, it'll ride. So we got back in and made it down there just fine, hiked in there. A lot of competition, a lot of guys down there. There's Indiana plates. There's just Wisconsin plates. Yeah, a lot of out-of-state guys. I think it's a popular spot for people making their trip out west for an archery elk hunt. But it's big country. There's plenty of room for everybody. We did one little hill before where we were going to camp. We were getting all excited. We glassed a few bulls already, and we came over the hill, and there was 2 guys setting up their tents in there. They beat us in by a couple hours, thanks to the heater core issue. So kind of it was what it was. And it was dark right at that point. So we hiked down the hill, just, a quarter mile in the dark, and set up on the hillside. And, the elk weren't talking at all. It was not opening day, but it was that first week. Elk weren't talking at all, so it was just spot and stock, try to glass them up in the morning or slow hike midday in the timber. So we chased them for a few days, didn't get any shots, and finally the morning of our last day of hunting, we woke up, glassed, I think it was like 5 bulls feeding on the hillside across from us. And so it was good. We stayed patient, waited till they bedded. They headed into some timber. It's kind of open, and then on the north side of each draw, there's timber. They headed into some timber, and we'd seen a couple at different points throughout the timber. So we thought they'd all made it to a certain point, and then bedded. So we hiked around. It was probably like a mile and a half. It's big country, so you kind of have to work the ridge. We worked the ridge around, came in above them. The wind had switched. It was going up the hill perfect, which was really nice. We came down, and the plan was for David to kind of work down along the left side and hook into them. And I was waiting where they'd fed from. And we figured once he busted them up, in case they smelled them early or something, I was waiting on the other side. So I'm hiking down my side, and I had another probably 200 yards to go to where I was going to sit and wait. And I caught something in the corner of my eye, and there's a big old elk rack just bedded at the base of a tree. So I'm like, oh, geez.
Did he bust you immediately?
No, so he was sleeping. I mean, I got lucky in that, I noticed him before he noticed me, and, it's just coming out of the ground, just these antlers. So I sat down real quick, got my pack off, started shaking. Got my rangefinder out, and I ranged him, and he was like 60, and I knew I really wanted to be like 50 or closer. So I just started inching closer, and the wind was great. I think he heard me moving a couple times, and he'd kind of lift his head and his ears and, look around, but then he'd kind of put his head back down. I'd inch another step. And I knew David was going to bust those elk, any minute, and it was going to bust this one. So, I'm ready to go. I'm ranging him every, probably 30 seconds. I worked into 50, and sure enough, I was thinking about trying to get a little closer, and I saw his ears perk up. It's funny, I don't hear anything. It just attests to their good, their good sense of smell.
But he was hearing the herd.
He heard David bust him up because, his ears perk up. Sure enough, stands up. He stands up, and I drew back as soon as he stood, and he was in a good spot to shoot where he stood up out of his bed. But he stands up, and he starts walking right away. I thought, oh, man, he didn't even stop. So he starts walking to the left, and there were 2 trees, a little opening between them. And so I thought, man, if he's not going to stop, that's the opening right there. So he took a couple steps, got into the opening, and I shot. And I saw the arrow, and, I kind of lost sight of it right as it got to him, but I heard brush. So I thought, man, I'm a little bit low, just right under him. I didn't even look up, though, after I shot. I knew I missed. I just looked down, knocked another arrow as quick as I could, drew back, and looked up. And he'd taken like 2 more steps and was still standing there broadside.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's still standing there broadside. He's kind of looking up my direction. Little did I know, the biggest bull in there was running up probably like, I don't know. It was steep, so I wouldn't have been able to see him, but he probably ran like 70 yards, up behind me. He kind of dove out higher than the other bulls, David said. He busted him first. That bull ran up behind me. But this one was standing broadside, and looking back, I wish I would have held a little higher, knowing I held low on the first shot. But I ranged him, and he was 50. So same thing, set right up on my 50 again, shot, and just heard whack. I thought, oh man, I must have hit him in the shoulder blade or something. And he spun and ran down the hill right away. So I didn't know what happened. I knocked another arrow, and I hiked down there, and there was this dead log, kind of right at his brisket level.
No.
And there's my arrow just stuck in there. And it was kind of rotting out, so I was actually able to, I just ripped like a foot-long section of log out with my arrow, and I'm like, well, I got to go see. Hopefully David got one. Start hiking over to David, and I meet him halfway in the middle, and he's looking at me with my arrow and the log that I'm holding it, and I'm looking at him, and he's got like 2 arrows left in his quiver. I'm like, dude, you got one? And he's like, looking at me, got one? And find out he missed a couple times too.
Oh, man.
His bow was off. I think mine was on, and I just held low. But we were pretty well spent after that. We hiked back to camp and packed everything out, drove home without any issues, which was great. But fun hunting down there. Totally different from up here. But
yeah, when you're talking about like glassing bulls across a draw and stuff, I'm like, man, that sounds nice.
I know.
You can't do that up here.
I know. Yeah, it's
so
funny.
Thick.
It's funny. It's totally different. I don't know if it's easier. I think for some people it's easier. There's guys that are probably the most successful people I know up here that shoot an elk every year is out of a tree stand.
Yeah,
they set their tree stand up on the trail going into the clear cut, and first week of season, a lot of times get a bull down. This down there, once I'm 40, I'm not gonna be able to do it anymore because the country's so big and steep. And if we would have both gotten one, it would have been a pack out for the century. It would have been tough, but super fun to go down there. And
did you guys see wolves or hear wolves?
No wolves. I did. I was hiking back to camp one night. It was still light out. It was right at dusk. And I saw the flash of something in the sagebrush. And it like jumped up on a log, and there's a cougar. It wasn't a big one, but I'm like, that's a cougar. I couldn't believe it. So I knock an arrow, and of course he jumped down off the log and went in. Like there's a dead tree with like a little gap of, brush under it. He went under the gap. So I kind of stood there for a while, nothing. I figured out he kept, slinking down the way. So I started walking towards him where I'd seen him last. And sure enough, he popped up again, and I wasn't ready. I got ready to draw back, and then he actually ran. So I probably should have been more ready, but that was pretty cool.
That is cool.
But yeah, no wolves. Honestly, I don't even know if we saw very many deer, maybe a couple mule deer. But
so you think they were not talking because of the hunting activity more than the wolves?
Yeah, it's just so open.
I guess they don't need to as much.
No, if you bugle on the hillside a mile away and they look over and don't see elk, they're going to head the other way. There's enough hunting pressure, I think. I know they talk down there once the rut hits later in the season, but same thing. Yeah. I think better be dark out and you're just trying to locate one first thing in the morning, or once you get in really close, maybe some soft calling if you're in timber or brush. But yeah, definitely different down there, but that was fun. So,
well, it seemed like the hunting contest, the big game competition, was a pretty huge success. A lot of guys
got
fun. A lot of stuff.
Yeah, super fun year. It's gotten bigger every year, which is great. I think it was like, not perfectly, but we've gone up by 10 entries a year pretty consistently.
Yeah.
I think this is the 4th year, and I think we had 50 something. So it's super fun.
Did you notice any like difference, like more elk this year or more anything?
No, less deer, I think even just people, me and I feel like less people shot whitetails this year. I don't know if that's just time. Or like I said, some people I know, just spots they usually see them didn't, but some great mule deer got shot this year. It seems like every year, guys that know what they're doing back in the wilderness areas get good mule deer. And then, there were good elk. I think not anything special though. I feel like last year we had a lot bigger whitetail bucks get entered. This year, not so much. I feel like everything was a little smaller. maybe due to the drought some and the disease some, but a lot of good entries. So that's super fun.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of the dead time of year, but you're starting to get geared up going after sheds, huh?
Yeah. It's just about time to start going. I mean, guys always, I was just talking to somebody yesterday, like, oh, are they dropping already? And it's like, well, you see guys on social media nowadays, they're picking them up on Christmas Day. So yes, they've started dropping, but ideally end of February is when I'd love to start, but there's so many guys out there. I try to wait till halfway through January and then start going before, it's kind of a balance, because not all the deer have dropped. Some areas, not even the majority of them have dropped, but guys are out there pounding the ground already. So, it's kind of a balance. I try to do popular spots first and get in there, maybe pick up a couple. And then once it's later on in the year and, once you get in the end of February, March, most of the areas, the majority of the deer have dropped, and you can go in there and hike it once and pick them up. So
yeah, it's a good way to get out, exercise the quads a little bit.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, it's a great way to exercise, even if you're not into hunting and, you don't want to carry around a gun and have to deal with butchering something, if that's not your thing, but you like spending time outside. I think shed hunting is a great way to do it. Still enjoy a lot of those same attributes and get your exercise in. So
yeah,
it's a good time. Yeah, that'll be coming up. And more turkey hunting for Asa, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to have to get them out.
The turkeys are doing great this year.
Oh, geez. Yeah, they're everywhere. It seems like all over the place, too. I know out by our house we got a ton of them, but I hear a lot of people are seeing them. So, yeah, it's good. Might need to get that second tag this year and get a couple of them, get some toms off. So,
yeah,
that'll be fun.
Awesome.
Sweet. Well, I got to run, so I'm going to have to cut it short, but we'll have to talk again. Those stories are awesome.
Yeah.
Fun to hear.
Oh, man, good talking to you.
Thanks, Jed.
Good luck to everybody this year.
Thanks for joining us. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you next week.